Landon, we want to focus back in here on Spotify. You guys are tracking this one. I'm sure the data has been strong given the extraordinary run that Spotify has had. However, has it kept pace enough to rationalize this type of a stock move?
Sure. So this is one that every time we talk about it in the LikeFolio office, everybody's smiling because we've been bullish on this for a long time. The data's been unbelievably strong. We've sent out a ton of alerts to our users, bullish on Spotify. So we're very happy about this one. And of course, though, that doesn't mean necessarily that we're always positive or bullish on earnings reports. That can vary. So, of course, when we dive into the Spotify data, one of the things that we look at, we take a look at the fiscal quarter data, sort of compare it year over year, quarter over quarter. We're seeing that Spotify is doing extremely well. So they've had a great run, starting basically at the beginning of this year, and we're hitting what we see as all-time highs on Q3 here for 2020 Q3, 85% up year over year. And Q4 is actually on a very good pace as well, up about 73%. That's just the pace of the current quarter, which is obviously a limited amount of data. But the quarter that they're about to report, we're seeing really strong numbers. I do think that you guys, you've talked about Joe Rogan. I think that's huge. One of the things that we've looked at is the podcasting effect on these kind of companies. So, they've had, I think, an increase in about almost 30% on monthly active users. Spotify has, but their ad revenues actually decreased about 20%. However, when they look at just how the podcast ads have done, they've outperformed. They've done really well because the users are more engaged. They're listening to a hour-long or 3-hour-long podcast, and they're fine with having a little ad here and there just as a bit of a break, and they can't wait for the content to keep going. Whereas, if it's music, maybe you just don't care and you switch songs or switch stations. So I think it's really important, and they're seeing how important these podcasts revenue is, and they're dominating that space. They're putting a lot of money into it. And they're actually winning against everybody. Here you can see Spotify on just podcasts versus Apple, and so they're doing extremely well here. They've taken the lead. They were kind of tied in the middle of 2018, and now they're really distancing themselves. Big bump, of course, from both of them around the pandemic. People are the lockdown. People are listening more then, pulling back a little bit, but still their lead is solidified. They've got about a 2-to-1 lead here, and so we're seeing not only great purchase intent data, but happiness is off the charts. And they're dominating their competition, like I talked about. Sirius, Pandora, they're both down as far as our data is concerned, 20 or 30% year over year, whereas Spotify, like I said, is up in the 80s. And so doing really well. And so as far as LikeFolio is concerned, we're continuing our bullish call on Spotify through earnings. We're excited about tonight.
Landon, what do you think is the way that Spotify gets to profitability, in your opinion? Now, I'm not holding you anything, obviously, but is it once these podcasts, and I think Joe Rogan is the whale, right? I think that's the one that they needed to land for the splash, and they did. What can they do, though, to get profitable? Or is this just a young Netflix that we should embrace the growth and embrace what they're doing and get on for the ride? Or is this one where, is it higher prices? Is it more, getting more people to the subscription, which has kind of become the new profit motive of companies, being a subscription? I'd like to know how you think they're going to get to profitability.
Sure. Well, I think that it's a move away from ads and into subscriptions. I think that that's happier users, and it's more consistent revenue. I think Netflix has sort of proven that model, that users, generally speaking, don't like ads, and they're willing to pay a few bucks a month for it. And so I think that's the long-term goal. And so it has to come through really high-quality content and possibly exclusive content. Again, going back to Rogan, coming exclusive soon. But I also think you make a great point about maybe as an investor, don't require profitability right now. If you look back at Netflix, right, you could have had a million arguments about profitability in the early days, but really getting tons and tons of users on is very critical, because when you have a large group of users, it's not difficult to leverage that into revenue down the road. And so I think I think a lot of investors are patient with Spotify. They like to see those monthly active users going up, and they're not as concerned about the ad revenue dropping. Sure, profitability is great. They want more revenue, all that. But in the end, in my opinion, the key metric is users.
And so building on that then, Landon, from an entrepreneurial kind of perspective that you have, from a business decision standpoint, them in a way, I mean, I'm not going to say they went all in by any means on Joe Rogan, but they spent a pretty penny from some of the reported figures on that exclusivity on the podcast. Are they basically betting that, hey, this is a popular enough show and popular enough influencer, if you will, or podcaster, that people are going to go out of their way to find this content no matter where it is? But what if that's not the case? What if it's just, hey, if I go on YouTube, he's on YouTube, I watch his videos. If he's not on YouTube, I'm not downloading another app. Isn't it kind of a dice roll in a way for that company to spend that much money on it?
It is. It's a gamble. I think that, personal opinion, I think they're absolutely right. I think people will seek it out. He's got a ton of followers, people that are, religiously listening to him. And, if he switches platforms, the users switch platforms. I think they're betting on that. I think that they know that they're right. I think they're right. But I also liken it, if you go back to the Netflix discussion that we had earlier, the comparison, it's like them creating shows. There was a time when Netflix did not create shows. And now they're spending a lot of money creating shows. That's the only place you can get them. They've developed a following for those shows, and that's one of the reasons people keep their Netflix subscription. Now, Spotify isn't creating these shows, but they are effectively owning them by making them exclusive. And so that is basically the same type of thing when it comes to a business perspective. So I think it's a really smart move. Go out, find the podcasters, or just find the music producers or people that have tons of following, loyal listeners who are going to move with them and get them on board. I think Rogan, they went after a really big one first. They maybe could have tested the concept more, but I don't think that they're wrong. I think they've got a great strategy. I think it's going to work.